Ah, feels good to be back. Did you miss me? Because I sure missed you guys. Not really. Anyway, we got a video today responding to someone who is quite big on conspiracy theories. Let's watch him rant about chemtrails and how that's somehow related to climate change.
Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Richie from Boston. Today's the 11th of June. It's 2018, and this is the sky last night. This is the sunset. And droves of people lined up to take pictures of it, not noticing the unbelievable amount of ridiculous layers of clouds, coal ash, aluminum, barium, strontium, everything just lingering directly and only in front of the sun.
Okay, so this is one of the first conspiracy theorists I've heard that have actually named some elements he believes to be part of this chemtrail that the government is spraying on us. So let's go over them one by one, shall we? First, he mentions aluminum. Now, aluminum is normally not dangerous at all. You could inhale aluminum dust and be just fine. Just like everything, if you're exposed to too much of it, it could potentially negatively impact your health, and aluminum is not an exception. Breathing in too much aluminum can cause lung problems. It is also suspected that too much could increase the risk of various other illnesses such as heart disease or dementia, but more research is needed to actually confirm this. Now, every one of us is exposed to trace amounts of aluminum, from food, water, air, everywhere basically, since it is the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust after all, and we all seem to be just fine. Only some miners and construction workers are actually exposed to more than normal levels, capped at 5 milligrams per cubic meter of breathing air. If you think just having a plane fly over the skies once in a while to dump aluminum into the air and reach levels that are dangerous or even close to what some workers experience, then that's just being naive. How much aluminum do you think a plane can even carry? Second, he mentions barium. This is indeed quite poisonous to humans. Exposure could lead to difficulty in the heart, breathing, weakness, swelling of organs, etc. However, this would completely depend on what type of barium compound you are exposed to, since some are less harmful than others. Like aluminum, there are already trace amounts of barium compounds throughout the environment, the air, and in drinking water. It is people who work in industries that deal with barium who definitely should be more careful. Here's the thing though, the government has placed many limits of barium exposure for people who work with the compounds, making sure they aren't exposed to more than what is safe. So the question is, if the government really wants to spray us with barium compounds, why put a limit to how much people can be exposed to in order to prevent any sort of health damage whatsoever? Lastly, he mentions strontium. Now, this element is different than the other two simply because it is very common in the environment and is also very common in the human body. In fact, it is deposited mostly in the bones for humans and is present throughout all living organisms. Of course, too much of it can be problematic. Strontium chromate, a compound involving strontium, can be toxic in the lungs, and strontium itself is a bigger concern if it exists in its strontium-90 form. But that's a health concern for any radioactive isotope, really. I guess for this one, it would really be helpful if you went into the specifics on what type of strontium it is, if it's in a compound, for example. Now, that leads me to the ultimate question. Why do you think the government, or whoever is doing this, are spraying aluminum, barium, and strontium into the air? What do they gain from this? If their goal would be to kill people, well, there are better things to spray in the air. If their goal is to brainwash people, well, those compounds don't do that. Not really any element would give you that power. So what is it exactly? I would love to know.
Doesn't even bother them that planes like this are clearly spraying two separate compounds. You can see it right here. You see this side where two elements are coming out of one engine, on the other side one element is, and this stretches from horizon to horizon.
Let me get this straight. You know that they're spraying two separate compounds because one of them has two nozzles or something? I mean, I just don't see how you reached that conclusion. It could have been the same element for all you know. Have you done any testing to figure out what these elements are? Have you done any sort of confirmation to determine that these are indeed two different substances? In other words, how did you even know that this is aluminum, barium, and strontium?
This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is information that's been out since last year.
Actually, the definition of conspiracy theory is independent on whether or not it's correct, so even if you're right, it's still a conspiracy theory. Also, where's this information you said that has been out? Got a link for me?
But the problem is, I've been making videos about this for almost 7 years now, 8 years, one of the two.
Okay, so information has only been out since only last year, and you've been making videos about this for 7 years now?
The science messing with the sky is exactly what caused what they call climate change.
What in the world? Okay, so you think it is scientists who are releasing these contrails? I mean, I just heard so much from conspiracy theorists about the government doing this and that I just didn't expect someone to accuse the scientists. but whatever. It's probably the same thing to you guys. I hate how much conspiracy theorists are against science, and yet at the same time, they use technology developed by scientists. I mean, that camera, for example, or that microphone, was invented based on scientific concepts developed by scientists. If you think science is so bad, then why are you enjoying the benefits of science in your everyday lives? Scientists work so hard to bring advancement to technology and medicine. Essentially, they make our lives better. So when they say the Earth is warming and climate change is a problem, you better believe that's with good intention. No one is conducting some grand conspiracy where they're spraying harmful chemicals in the air that causes global warming and then falsely blaming this warming on the general population. The reality is, these chemtrails you're speaking of are actually contrails, basically just condensed water, and climate change is happening, driven largely by human activity. If you can't agree with what science tells you, then just put down your smartphone right now.
Do you remember the old days when there was acid rain? Well, that's because they were using sulfuric acid. It didn't work out. It kept coming down. So they got rid of it. You never hear about it anymore.
Okay, acid rain is the result of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide emissions, not sulfuric acid. This can come from factories and volcanoes, but overall humans have taken a lot of steps to reduce the amount of SO2 emissions. A few decades ago, acid rain was a relatively big topic, but due to research and more understanding on acid rain, regulations passed to reduce sulfur dioxide, and we saw a massive drop in acid rain levels in the United States. It had nothing to do with releasing chemtrails into the air.
We need to save carbon emissions, so forth and so on. It doesn't even dawn on people that CO2 is plant food. It's part of photosynthesis.
Well, yes, it's plant food, and it's an important contributor to photosynthesis, but if you think that's enough to stop global warming, then you're wrong. Here's the case they present. More carbon dioxide in the air means more photosynthesis. More photosynthesis means more carbon dioxide will be taken out of the air. Sounds like a good argument at first. However, let's take a look at the relationship between carbon dioxide levels and photosynthesis activity. As CO2 increases, photosynthesis will also increase, yes, but it plateaus off. It doesn't increase at the rate in which carbon dioxide is emitted into the atmosphere, which means although yes, plants will help to reduce greenhouse gases in a sort of a negative feedback loop, it will also not be able to keep up with the rate of CO2 release. At best, plants will be able to mitigate the effect, not negate it. But you know what we can do to have plants reverse global warming? Plant more trees, stop deforestation. These are all things we should be doing, but yet people like you just want to sit back and say, plants will take care of it, as if they'll solve the massive problems humans are creating.
This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's the biggest conspiracy going on the earth right now. These guys are spraying the sky every day. They're blocking out the sun. They're screwing with the weather. And worse, we're breathing all this heavy metal in.
Okay, let me just tell you what these trails actually are. They're water. When water transitions from a hot environment, aka the engine, to a cold environment, aka the outside air in high altitudes, it condenses and forms water crystals. These aggregate together to form something that looks like clouds, and that's what is coming out of the aircraft. Usually an aerosol is also being released by the engines, which the water can grip on and form droplets around, making it even easier to condense. That's it. It's not rocket science, it's just the behavior of water in different temperatures.
And anytime somebody points a finger, they simply show the Antarctic. Again, you know, the place that nobody's allowed to go.
Well, first of all, scientists show more than just the Antarctic. They show you data, they show you models, they show you predictions. I mean, just looking at Antarctica isn't much to begin with. And what do you mean no one is allowed to go there? Of course you're allowed to, but it's just slightly restricted for research purposes. Scientists go there all the time. Tourists too. I mean, have you even bothered to put any effort into this? Have you tried contacting the scientists who have gone there? Have you tried looking for tourist groups to take you there? It's easier to go to that continent as you may think. I know you primarily make flat earth videos, which is why you brought up Antarctica at all, but come on, let's not mix the two topics here.
People need to start waking up before it's too late.
Sometimes I wonder why conspiracy theorists do what they do. At first I tried to think of a motive on why someone would start the conspiracy theory in the first place. However, I honestly just couldn't think of any reason someone would just claim that the government is spraying harmful chemicals in the air. Unless they just wanted to spark doubt of the government, I guess. The followers of the conspiracy theory, however, are definitely just stupid. Interestingly enough, I myself believed in a conspiracy theory at one point in my life. I was very young and I saw on YouTube that the cure to AIDS has finally been discovered. But the government was hiding it, not necessarily because they wanted to do harm to the public, but because they didn't want to put thousands of scientists who researched AIDS out of work. I know it's a stupid conspiracy theory to believe in, but it didn't take me long to realize it was bullshit. Plus, I was a kid back then. I don't think there's really any excuse for an adult to believe in this nonsense though. Anyway, that's it for this video. Absolutely thank you to my patrons for making videos like this one possible. I couldn't have done it without you guys. Even $1 goes a long way. And a special thanks to Garrett for being the top patron for a whole year now. I am eternally grateful to your generosity. Thank you so much.